Hello, this is Daniel Batchelor from Powder River Precision. I'm going to go over how I install our spring kit for the XDS. I lock the slide to the rear, rotate the takedown lever to the up position, let the slide forward, make sure the back of the frame and the slide are aligned, pull the trigger and the slide will come off. So I'm going to work with the slide first here. Remove the guide rod and the barrel. Push down on the striker safety and push the striker safety forward and then let it up. That holds the striker safety in position while I remove the extractor pin. I use a 1/16 inch punch, starting at the bottom and pushing the pin out the top of the slide. Remove the extractor and the extractor spring, and there's a little rubber buffer that's in the extractor spring. I'm going to put my finger over the striker safety and pull the striker safety to the rear, and that'll release the striker safety. I'll remove that, take the spring out, and replace it with the spring from our kit. Reinstall that. Ensuring that it's aligned in the striker safety. Again, holding the striker safety down, push the striker forward and release tension. That'll hold that in place while we reinstall the extractor. Extractor spring and then the extractor. I put the front of the extractor in the slide first and then rotate it to the rear of the slide. Compress the spring and reinstall the pin. I use a 3mm punch. There's a little collar right below the striker here. Hold that down, remove the striker retainer plate, and the striker spring will slide out the top. There's a collar that retains the striker spring. Remove that, remove the striker spring, install the striker spring out of the kit, reinstall the collar, and making sure that the striker spring is lined up around the striker. Reinstall that in the slide. Compress the striker guide. Reinstall the striker retainer plate. Reinstall the barrel and the guide rod. Set that off to the side. Start working on the frame. Rotate the takedown lever to the 10 o'clock position and pull out. Continue rotating and pulling and it'll come out. Using a 3mm punch, start the pins. Have a bench block. I'll use that to remove the pin that holds the sear housing in place. Remove the locking block, and it's going to have the slide stop spring. Set that off to the side. Remove the slide stop, and this little bar interacts with the magazine and prevents you from disassembling the gun if you have a magazine installed. Lift up on the sear housing going to put this spring back in place here so you can see what this is supposed to look like. Okay, there's the grip safety spring. And it also lifts up the sear over on the left hand side of the sear here. Remove the trigger bar. The grip safety spring, the grip safety, and then we need to take the grip safety pin out. Alright, this little pin holds the disconnector spring in place. You can turn it upside down, usually it'll fall out. If it doesn't, you can hold it upside down and tap it on something and it'll come out. I'm going to remove the disconnector spring, and I'm going to keep the disconnector here facing down while I do that. Get the new disconnector spring from the kit, install it on the disconnector, and then tilt it into place. Then reinstall the pin that holds it on the other side. Take the sear, remove the factory sear spring, and reinstall our sear spring. And that goes with the hook this way. So when it sits in the gun, the open end of the hook should be up on the grip safety pin. Take the grip safety, install it into the sear housing, and I use my punch to hold that in position. Retract the punch partway, and install the grip safety spring over the punch. I'll rotate the grip safety or the sear into place. Grip safety pin. Use that to push the punch out. And then I use the punch to seat the spring and the detent on the pin. Okay, I've got the sear rotated up into position. We're going to set this off to the side while we change the trigger safety. Again, I'm going to use my locking block, or my bench block. Remove the pin most of the way, it doesn't have to come all the way out. Remove the trigger safety spring. Install the trigger safety spring from the kit. Reinstall the trigger safety. Make sure everything's lined up, and reinstall the pin, ensuring that it's sitting just below flush on both sides. Install the trigger bar into the sear, and I rotate it forward and up to hold that out of the way while I install the grip safety spring. Grip safety spring goes in there. We'll reinstall the grip safety pin. Okay. The arm on this grip safety sits on top of the grip safety pin, but below the sear. So at this point, I'm going to rotate the sear back and down with the trigger bar. Align the grip safety where it's supposed to sit, the arm. Once that's in place, you can use a little punch or a screwdriver to rotate the leg of the grip safety back into position. Then if we lower this down, instead of up, have it down, it should lock that into place. If we lift it up, it's going to be free to move. So lock that down. You'll notice the pin that was holding the disconnector spring in place fell out again, so we'll put that back in place. Make sure the pins in the sear housing are centered, and then lower the sear housing into the frame. Install this disassembly disconnect bar here. The takedown lever, the locking block with the slide stop spring, I'll use the upper locking block pin first, the trigger pin. Sometimes it's necessary to lift the slide stop up and down to line up the hole. Seat that pin. Takedown lever. Again, that little pin fell out. Put that back in. Lower it down. Reinstall the sear housing pin. Making sure that it's seated below the frame on each side. Rotate the takedown lever up. Make sure that the trigger is to the rear. If it's not to the rear, you won't be able to reassemble the slide. Reinstall the slide. Rotate the takedown lever down. Go ahead and check the trigger pull here. Right about 5.5 pounds. Thanks for watching the video.